they're used to dealing with school districts. So this seems, they're working with us. They're not putting pressure on us, but they're saying, this is the 5th year of this conversation.
So, insurance in terms of litigation risk.
Well, one of the things we learned recently, not to get off in the bushes here, is that, we don't really have the same immunity that a school district has for other liability issues. That those caps don't apply to our stadium, we've been told. So that creates like another layer of problems for us, or challenge.
All right, and I just feel like we're not the kind of community that generally makes decisions based off our culture of litigation. I think that's kind of
I don't think we do either. We're trying to keep that. So that's part of the reason we're having this discussion.
Well, we're saying the bleachers are now completely unsafe, even though 2 months ago they were.
Well, they've been unsafe, but nothing's happened.
Right.
That's the other way to look at it. Excuse me, sir, what was your name again? Keating? Rich Keating. Mitch. Thank you.
Charles Seeley, Bedminster. So if I'm understanding what has been said tonight, we don't have the money to do this, but we're going to consider taking money that previous boards have been putting aside for the eventual pension debacle that the legislators have kicked down the road. What we were doing in past years is, even though we knew we should be putting in 7 or 8%, the state said, no, you only have to put away, to give us 4%. We, in the budget, put in 8%, and we've been taking that excess and putting it aside, because now that 4% has become 6 or 7%, which has become 12%, which is 16%, and now going into the new year in July 1, the pension cost to this district will be 21%. And then down the road from there, it'll go to 31% of payroll. And that means that our taxes will be going up. The whole point of squirreling this money away is to ease that increase in percent of increase, which will now be 21% for this coming year. So we're going to take that money to do this work. That's basically what they're saying. Now, if that happens, they still have to pay the 21% of
I don't
payroll.
think any of us have said that.
Excuse me?
I don't think any of us have said that. We're going to do that. You just said we're going to do that.
No, I said you were considering, I said you were
You
considering.
said that. We said that.
I said you, the board, is considering taking that money, because that's what Kathy just said.
That's not what you said. You said you were going to do it.
She said that you can do that. You can unencumber the money that's put aside for the pensions and use it for this purpose. So that means that in order to pay the 21%, you're going to have to raise taxes. So either way, the taxpayer's going to pay for this. The question is, how less expensive can you do this so that you don't take that much money from this pension fund that we've been putting money aside for? It seems that there should be some reduction in the cost of all of this so that we're not using up the pension set-aside money.
Thank you.
Plus, you're going to do what you got to do anyway.
I thought that's what you were here for, to do what you're going to do anyway. I must comment on the young lady who spoke about girls' athletics, and I know that you have nothing to do with this, but I must make this comment. It costs roughly about $250 to $350 to equip one football player. Their helmets are terribly expensive. All the other, it costs probably $100 to $200 to equip most girls' athletics for one girl. And I am all in favor of girls. This is my beautiful granddaughter right here. This is her right here. This is Jeff's daughter. And she played athletics when she was in high school. I am all in favor of girls' athletics. Please don't get me wrong. But there's a vast difference because football players bring a lot of money into the TAS, into the toll, whatever they bring them into. And whereas girls' athletics do not. But I'm all in favor. I want to make that clear. Now, I'm going to close with this remark. If any of you have any doubts about moving the field over to the field over here, I want you to go down and park your car on the other side of 5th Street some night, and then I want you to start walking and walking and walking and walking and walking uphill, 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 till you get to the top. And then you've got to walk up those bleachers. I want to tell you, I've done it, and it's a long walk to walk up those bleachers. So build this new stadium over at Papa Yoder Field.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Hopefully you feel that, we've given, opened it up enough. So, all that being said, we're still right back where we started this summer. I don't know where we're going from here. It's about 10 o'clock now. I don't know if you want to take a break for a minute. I don't know if that is 6. But
So you expect us to make some kind of decision tonight?
I don't know what to expect, to be honest. So I expected us to look at the options. I was trying to maybe get Dr. Yarnell on the spot a little bit. He's been here a long time. I don't think any board should bid. This is a no-win situation. It's sad in some ways because you want to make the right call for everybody, and most of the time with these things you can't. I mean, the county commissioner talked about CB East not having a stadium for 20 years. How long that's been. So there's so many different ways to look at this. It's not just the money. It's part of the community. I get that. I don't know how we're going to make everybody happy, no matter what. Because this crowd tonight is a pro-Papa Yoder crowd. I think there's 40,000 other people that aren't here. I don't know if they don't care, or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't care as much. So it's a nice sampling of the crowd, but really, in the big picture, not too many. That's some of the thoughts I have. Like I said earlier, I like that field. I don't know if it's where we're going to end up or not. Last night at the East Rockville, this thing, it's not like we're rushing into it. I was amazed. The East Rockville supervisors know more about our project than me. So they must have seen it a couple of times by now. It's remarkable how they knew about sewage and the drainage, the lights and traffic, and it's incredible. So I know this seems fresh. And to answer, come back to Bill's question, are we going to make a decision on what way to go tonight? I mean, we could go down the panel here and we could all put our necks out and see what happens. And that's like the sport itself. So maybe we need to do that. But I'm going to ask Dr. Arnell to maybe give us some of his insights since he's been around. But we talked about the field. What if we don't do anything? What does that mean for the season? What does that mean for the school? I don't really know. I couldn't tell you what that means. We haven't really talked about that at all. Who's our resident expert on it? We don't do anything. The same thing that hasn't been done for years, year after year. We don't do anything. What's the reality of doing nothing? Or either that or I missed that part. I don't see, again, I got from the board that we're not going to let the crowd go in that stadium. Or if we do, we're taking a risk. So, Jeff, Dr. Radigan?
Well,
I mean,
if we don't do anything, we can play there. Highlights, the bleachers are.
well, the boys can play there, I guess.
Well, it would be day games and their parents, the bleachers.
I think one of the, it's funny, a lot of Band-Aids have got on that place. We drilled holes in that field to find out that it's muddy. I don't know if you knew that. That was $18,000. Find out that the field's muddy. You guys probably could have told us for cheap. So we did partial repairs on the bleachers for $80,000 a few years ago. Like the estimate at that time was around $375 to fix it. Now 4 years later, so it's kind of tracking upward with the damage. So I know one of the contractor, one of the gentlemen, where he go? He thought the price was high, but oh, there he is. But I mean, you got to find somebody who wants to take that job, and it's like a lot of manpower on that job. And we could go on and on about the hours we've spent talking about it that you guys don't know about. Everything that came up tonight, we've talked about it 4 or 5 times at least. So I guess what I'm trying to come across saying is that you may not have turned over every stone, but a lot of stones we have. And once again, it's going back to Bill. Do we want to at least state our opinions and see where we're at with this thing? I mean, you're seeing it for the first time tonight. The numbers, we kind of knew it was coming. Had a few days, a week or so to look at it. And maybe the numbers aren't how spot on are they? I mean, we're just getting educated estimates from people that are in the trade or in the trade. Is that correct?
That's right.
Well, I'm going to be quiet again and put Dr. Yarnell on the spot. He's been around a long time.
Yes, I think it is. Thank you, Barry. I have been around a while. I was not raised in this community. I was raised in Happy Valley, which sometimes isn't so happy. But, and I am a Penn State fan. I would tell that to everyone. It's on my license plates, probably most people know. So I've gone through some of this at the collegiate level. I'm old enough to remember when Penn State played on campus. They still play on campus. The trouble is the campus is now 7 times as large as it was when I was a young man and first went to those games at 8 years old. So I've been going there, well, a lot of years, 60-some years. And I've experienced being closer to the field, being farther from the field, having a track, not having a track. It's a different experience when you have a College of Agriculture to take care of your field and when the fans pay the kind of prices that they pay to support that university and that team. But some of the issues are the same. There's a lot of tradition. To Mr. Hollenbach, I would say that I routinely walk more than a mile because I'm not willing to pay the price to park near the stadium, which is quite extravagant in my opinion. And it's uphill, at least one direction. I don't claim it to be uphill both directions like some people do about the way we operated in the snow in years past. So you do that. But my feeling is that even though this is not nearly as complicated a project as this high school project was about a decade ago, once you have a phased project, and anytime you have numbers of contractors involved, it's much more complicated than people projected at the beginning. So my concern is that we say that we can make this work for the fall season this year, or next year if we don't start this year, but whatever year we start. I think that's potentially difficult. I think the thinking here was that the high school would be completed in 4 years. It turned out to be more like 5.5. And once you go out to public bid, you live with whatever the contractor is, because we live in a world of low bidder. We only got 2 bids for the general contractor here at the high school. Many of you don't remember that, I suspect, but I surely do. They were $5 million different in price. The general contractor that we had, I think most of us would say was not the one that we would have chosen if we had had the choice, but we couldn't disqualify the individual or the organization. So there are lots of pitfalls, and the whole land development issue, local communities can be very helpful and often are, and I give them great credit for that. But there are just numbers of steps that have to be taken, and that takes time. My concern is that we don't have the time that we need to, even if we're willing to make a decision on March 24th. So those are my concerns.
Excuse me, can I speak again? You say you don't know what to do and where to go from here. but to me it seems simple. If we want to play and have fans watch the boys play football anywhere, you need to put a motion out to order some bleachers so we can have the possibility of having people watch our sons play football this fall. To me, that's a no-brainer. Regardless of what decision goes down, whether you fix the field, whether you come up here and do other stuff, bleachers, you even said it yourself, from a safety standpoint, you need bleachers if you want fans. Fans will bring money, whether you have a concession stand or you have a ticket booth up there, you have porta potties. I mean, yeah, do what you have to do to play football. And bleachers apparently are the #1 priority as of tonight, in my opinion. Thank you.
Actually, one of the things that they could do is play in another team's field. So that is just another option. I know Coach and I spoke about all the different options of what could happen, because to Dr. Yurnell's point, with all the best intentions, there's no guarantee, whatever option the board goes with, that it will be ready. So I think we have to be prepared that if neither one is ready, what are we going to do? Another thing you could do is you could play at the high school field, the home 4 games, and see how it feels. Go with the attitude of what if this was how it was going to be long term? How does this feel to us? How can we make it a special place? And maybe in that time frame we figure out the specifics of what it's going to cost to do either any of these options.
It was the year before. There were capacity questions in regard to that. It was senior night. Not this past season, the season before.
I certainly don't have the amount of seating at the high school right now that you would have if you put new bleachers there. I understand that. That is a complication.
Okay, I'm up here whispering. You know, what I was saying just now was, for me, you know, we haven't really got to the money part of this. We haven't given Kathy any direction about the money, and there's a lot's happening here tonight. I would like us to see if there's support to sleep on this, and come back either at our next meeting, the scheduled meeting, or schedule another one. See how we feel that after we take it in tomorrow and the next days, and maybe give Mrs. Johnson some time. But this is not me. I'm just asking for support for this. That, you know, find out where we're going to get the money. A solid and more concrete plan of that. I think that Mr. Spatafora, maybe everyone hasn't gotten it, but I think the homework has been done. That's how I feel about it. Does anybody else feel we haven't done our homework? I don't know. But
I believe the homework has been done, the decision needs to be made. Which field?
I think maybe where I'm at, if there's support to sort of sleep on it and find out how we can pay for it. And I think, you know, when it starts getting to be about 10:30 at night, it's hard for me. I don't want to rush it tonight, and I don't think it's fair to public to do that tonight. So I don't know who asked the question about that.
It's been 5 years.
So you want us to make a decision tonight? And you're the coach's daughter. Talk about pressure.
I just one really small question that might seriously not make a difference, but I am just wondering, what is wrong with the scoreboard?
Doesn't work. The lights keep going out. It did work?
Scoreboard works.
Oh.
There's,
All right.
the ball's on 10, with 40 to go or something like that. That part didn't work. We sent it out, got repair. It broke immediately. We sent it out. They can't repair it. The rest of the scoreboard is the same age. If anything else breaks, fine. They can't fix it. So it's life cycles as it's happening.
Well, that's true, this is not even a voting meeting, I'm probably the one who wants to make a decision more than anyone, because of the amount of time that's gone into this, just since I've been on the board. So for me to say that was kind of tough in some ways, for me, to be selfish to share that with you, because this is a staff decision that's been waiting for 5 years. And, I just don't, I'm just putting it out there. I've heard no one else has commented about that. It's not for me to decide.
Mr. Casper, perhaps what we could do, since the committee doesn't vote, we can't vote here tonight, we have to vote on Monday, so why don't we, what we can do is we can put 3 different motions on, to have, bleachers for here, bleachers for there, or whatever, whatever the committee decides, but we could decide to put a motion on Monday's meeting, or more than one motion, so that at least the wording is out there and available for everybody to see, and then on Monday, the board doesn't have to decide immediately right now, that the motions are there, people will know that there'll be a vote on Monday. We have to make a decision.
That's how we usually, that's the purpose of our committee, our work session meetings are for that purpose.
Barry.
Great, we decide now as a committee that we're going to put a motion on Monday's meeting, so the committee can decide what motion we're going to put on, and then Monday night, we go.
Well,
You're not ready to put a motion together? Well, the motion will have to be not only about, the motion, how do we tie the funding to it? We're going into it, we're kind of going into it blindly in some sense. We know where we may be able to get money, but we haven't really directed anyone to say where exactly we're going to get it, whether it's from the teaser stabilization, which, by the way, was money that normally would have gone. Where would that money have gone? It's a capital project.
Okay.
So that takes the sting out of that for me a little bit anyway. That money that we put over there would have ended up in the capital project. Also, along those lines, we fixed all our other schools the last 4 years and haven't we spent our own year money. So, I remember sitting at one facilities meeting where we talked about taking our fund down to 0. Nobody said a word. Not one word in the crowd. I was shocked by that. I don't know if you recall that night. So, for you guys, this might be the first time hearing it, but after that meeting, I was driving home going, wow. All right, we're down to 0. No one seemed to care that day.
I think it's a very good point. You can pick any one of these, but if you don't know what the consequences of your actions are going to be, that could be a disaster. So I think what I hear you saying, Mr. Casper, is you want, and the board wants Mrs. Johnson to say, okay, if we go with option 1, here are the ways we could fund option 1. Option 2, here are your options. Because you may look at some of them and say, well, I could rule that out immediately because there's no way I would do that.
Well, I actually want to take it further than that because in our last meeting where our PFM was there, that's our bond company, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't deplete our last $5 million. Maybe we should borrow and maybe the time is right to borrow some money now and then keep that money in the bank, so to speak. That's a whole other story.
Right, I think I believe I started my conversation, one of my conversations this evening with, currently we have $0 in our capital projects for any projects, whether it's bleachers, whether it's roofs next year, whether it's something that breaks that we didn't anticipate. We have depleted those funds. So the funding for me, and talking about funding, is beyond this $2 or $3 million that we're talking about here, and that is why I thought it was important that Mr. Spatafor bring forward the 5-year plan so that the board and the community understands that we're looking for $20 million. It's not a $3 million. In my long-range mind, it's not a $3 million issue that we're talking about. It's a $20 million issue long-term. And how do we fund? Because right now we're taking as things are being thrown at us, I feel that we're being very reactive rather than taking a structured approach to how we're going to do things in the future.
And that's a good point, Mrs. Johnson, because we just really learned recently about the condition of these bleachers. That, you know, somebody mentioned the word condemned. No, they're not condemned, but they're about one level below that, to the point where we feel as though we don't want anybody on them. But, you know, just because we know the timeline, and I totally get that, I'm afraid for you to make a rash decision that you're not comfortable with. So maybe option 8 is we don't play on Papa Yoder, we play at the high school for one season until we figure this all out. That may be option 8.
We have a budget meeting scheduled for February 25th. Could we talk about the options, the financial options there? And then if we felt that we had enough information at that point, then we got another budget meeting scheduled for March 4th. I think we can turn that into a special board meeting. Does that make it, is that too late already when we later?
I think it might.
I think we're pushing the limit now of meeting the March date as is. Again, the location is irrelevant. The bleachers are going to go at either one. If the decision is to keep delaying making a decision at all, we're going to have a backup plan for the few home games that we do have. Because if we go into October with the construction, where is the first home game going to be?
Where is our Thanksgiving game? Away this year? It's away? So maybe Dr. Radigan had the best ideas so far with trying out and seeing how it feels at the field.
Yes.
That might not be a bad idea.
I agree. I think that's an excellent option, just give us a year.
That doesn't mean we should sit though. What I don't want to do is if we do that, we're not going to sit up this like we said.
No, but then we can contact the people that are interested in the summit, the Rotarians, constructive work, fundraising, and we have some suggestions out here. I think that's a great idea, Dr.
Barry?
Yes, sir.
There has been, the gentleman here from Dewey has told me that other schools have made arrangements in these kinds of situations to play games at other school stadiums, their home games at other school stadiums. Have we looked at that at all?
I don't have the answer to that. I don't think we haven't gotten to that critical level yet. You want to play a home game, you want to play Soderson at Soderson? No.
Coach Yoder had a little experience with that at Hackboro, and Hackboro did this for a year, and I guess I know Hackboro did it. Their program overall was really good for like 4 or 5 years. Coach stuff, all those really, really like not
Loeffler if we could possibly rent some extra bleachers, if he thinks that's a possibility.
We'll get to that.
Because if we have bleachers for only 500 to 700 people, then we keep the band and the cheerleaders out, who doesn't know half the parents or party players? It's not working. So if we play up here with only 500 seats instead of 5,000, do you tell the band and the cheerleaders that they can't come? And then you limit the crowd? Is that what we're saying? Because then we'll have another meeting with all those people here.
Well, these are the logistics that, you know, we touched on before. If we don't do anything, it's going to be a lot of problems. But, you know, I still like the idea of trying out the field, only under the condition that we don't sit on our hands and let this go again. This isn't going to go away, and not everyone's going to like where we end up. And it's going to be chaos. It's borderline chaos now. And everybody on the board, you know, I'll speak for me, I don't really like being tied into chaos all the time with hard decisions.
I think this speaking for a lot of people right here, we can play home, Friday night football at this point, I think we're good with that. I understand, you know, it's complicated, but I get it. So I think we can get home, play football.
Well, let's go down the line here, start with Mr. Ragomos. We're pretty quiet over there. Let's just take a little quick poll on that real fast. I'm all right with that. With that, we'll try it out here at home. What do you say? I don't know. We have to decide. We have to take a step towards the decision. We're not even doing that right now. I don't feel.
So you're going to disenfranchise the band and the cheerleaders?
I'll find out about tomorrow.
I mean,
We're not going to find
the
out.
game. Fans are nice and everything, but the game is the game. If there's 5 people there, the game goes on.
There's plenty of places to stand. We can bring blankets if it's dry, put them on the hillside. You can bring your lawn chairs.
Oh, yeah, because that's good.
You know, we can put 3,000 people in here one way or another.
Yeah.
Fucking idiot, Jeff.
Well, Coach, if I understood you correctly, you're saying, how many Friday night games do we have? We've got 4 games. All 4 are Friday night? One's Thursday. Okay, so you're saying you would accept 3 games here at this field, at the high school, if we could accommodate it somehow? Oh, pardon me, all 4. All 4, okay. And then, so Jeff, you would have to do your work regarding any type of bleacher rentals and things like that. Well, I think the coach had made the suggestion, that's a concession he's willing to make for this season, which this is a lot to digest, what we have here. And it's not a decision, I think, that should be made lightly. There are things in here that maybe we can look at closer. You had mentioned fundraising. If we have a year's worth of fundraising, will that help offset some of the costs? Absolutely, I think it will. And I think the community could come together in terms of doing some of that fundraising. Now, that being said,